is CBS News 24/7. I'm Reed Cowan. All right, so breaking news out of San Francisco, California, in that high-profile murder case involving a Bay Area tech executive. Here's your headline at this hour. A jury has just found Nima Momeni guilty of second-degree murder in the killing of Cash App founder Bob Lee. Let's listen in live to our partners at CBS News Bay Area covering this announcement.
Is the hardest one, right? Which sounds theoretical, but when you get down to it and have that many different jurors with different life experiences, I think jurors usually interpret that beyond a reasonable doubt very, very carefully. And so that may have led to some of the back and forth. Are we sure? Are we sure that it was intentional? Are we sure that it wasn't premeditated? And I think that is probably what took the length of time. I will say that the jury must be exhausted. And my understanding is that no one left when given an opportunity to. So I think they were very committed to their work.
And it seems like in this case.
All right, sounds like back to the courtroom. We're getting word that some of the family members are.
Okay. Oh, okay. Can I ask a question? Is anyone on?
All right, so that is some of the coverage from our partners at CBS News Bay Area. The moment you just saw there as family members file out of that courtroom after hearing the verdict from the jury that took 7 days to deliberate. Some of those jurors were told you can go home early. We'll just have to bring in alternates and then start deliberations all over again. They stuck to it and they came back with second-degree murder charges. Much more on this on CBS News 24/7. For now, let's move on the map to Capitol Hill. 3 big stories, so we're going to dig into that as well. First of all, the man President-elect Donald Trump tapped to lead the Department of Health and Human Services, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. He is trying to drum up support from senators ahead of a confirmation hearing that is set for next month. Second big headline to come out of Capitol Hill, a briefing on those mysterious drones that continue taking over skies on the East Coast and causing a lot of alarm and concern. And third, the work to slash government spending in something new called the Doge Caucus. So let's begin with RFK Jr. and the reporting of CBS News congressional correspondent Nicole Killian. Nicole, nice to have you with us. So President-elect Trump really threw his support behind RFK Jr. yesterday. Do you get a sense that that's going to help him in his conversation with senators?
Well, he's actually been pretty supportive of him since he selected him, but certainly he reaffirmed that in his news conference yesterday, saying that he doesn't believe that he's going to be as radical as some people think, and also reaffirming that he's a big believer in the polio vaccine. Of course, there was some controversy around RFK Jr.'s positions around it since his personal attorney 2 years ago submitted a petition to the FDA seeking to revoke approval for the polio vaccine. So as soon as he landed here on Capitol Hill yesterday, we saw RFK Jr. say, I'm all in for the polio vaccine. But since then, he really hasn't answered many more questions about what that means, if he does, in fact, intend to keep it and not get rid of it, and what his views are with respect to other vaccines. Certainly at times he has suggested a potential link between vaccines and autism. That is something he has been asked about many times here on Capitol Hill, but has yet to respond. So that being said, a lot of these meetings are underway with senators. He met a short time ago with Senator Robert Marshall of Kansas, who happens to be a physician, and he has a slew of other meetings planned for this afternoon.
Nicole, while we have you there on Capitol Hill, following yesterday's school shooting tragedy, once again we hear calls for gun control and this legislation. We do know that there are at least 7 gun control related discharge petitions set to expire at the end of this month. What can you tell us about that?
Well, not too much, unfortunately, because they're just that. I mean, they're discharge petitions that haven't really been discharged, and they're technically a mechanism that's kind of put into play by the minority as a way to, get legislation onto the floor. But it requires, a significant number of votes just to be discharged onto the floor. And given that Democrats are in the minority and Republicans are in the majority, it's unlikely Democrats would ever have enough votes to get something moved. That being said, we have seen a bipartisan outpouring of support for the victims of that Madison school shooting. Many members of the Wisconsin congressional delegation, from Senator Ron Johnson to Republican to Congressman Mark Buchan, who represents Madison, have all said, that their thoughts and prayers are with the community. But obviously, more of the reaction we have seen from Democratic lawmakers has been calling for some type of action. But as you know, Reed, we're now the calendar day and days are slipping away from us. So there's really not much time for lawmakers to get anything done at this point if they wanted to around the issue of gun control.
So stay with us, because earlier today, House Speaker Mike Johnson talked about government funding, another hot topic there on the Hill. Let's listen to that.
This is not an omnibus, okay? This is a small CR that we've had to add things to that were out of our control. These are not man-made disasters. These are things that are that the federal government has an appropriate role to do. So I wish it weren't necessary. I wish we hadn't had record hurricanes in the fall, and I wish our farmers were not in a bind so much that creditors are not able to lend to them anymore. We have to be able to help those who are in these dire straits, and that's what the volume of the pages to this is. So it is not an omnibus. This is a CR. Again, we're not doing all the approach bills. We're doing a CR to patch us into the first quarter of next year so that we can put our fingerprints on what those final spending bills are, and we're looking forward to doing that.
There's a ticking clock. They run out of money midnight on Friday. So where do we stand on all of this?
Yeah, and so that's why I was saying, because of that ticking clock, that's why not too much else will get done until they're able to clear the decks on this. But look, we are hoping to see some legislative text today. That certainly was the Speaker's hope and anticipation. He pledged that we would with respect to this continuing resolution. He did, though, indicate that it will go into March of next year, March 14th to be specific, because he said that coincides with the House and Senate calendars, and that this is, for the most part, a basic, clean CR. But what you heard there in that soundbite is he was just defending the fact that some things did have to be added on, which he said he wouldn't do previously right before the holidays. But it will include critical aid, for instance, for those who were impacted by Hurricanes Helene and Milton earlier this year. And also will include some additional assistance for farmers who the Speaker said had been really hit hard this year, particularly around the issue of commodity prices. So from that standpoint, that's broadly speaking what we expect to come out of this package once it's released.
CBS News congressional correspondent Nicole Killian, always out of the park on Capitol Hill. Thank you so much for joining us today. Let's ride our monitors now to Wisconsin, where the Madison community reels from a fatal shooting at the Abundant Life Christian School. 3 dead, including the shooter. So here's what we know so far. The victims include a teacher and a teenage student. The shooter, identified also as a teenager, 15-year-old female that attended the school. Officials say she was pronounced dead while being rushed to the hospital from what appears to be a self-inflicted gunshot wound. The parents of that teenager cooperating in the investigation. We also have more details about how this tragedy unfolded inside the school. In those horrific moments, Madison police confirm the initial 911 call came from a second grader, a child who heard the gunshots ring out and called 911. Now, officials also confirm the shooting occurred in one classroom where study hall was held with several students from several grades. Earlier today, Vice President Kamala Harris addressed the shooting during an event for young leaders engaged in their local communities. Here's what she had to say.
It's another school shooting, another community being torn about and torn apart by gun violence. And of course, our nation mourns for those who were killed, and we pray for the recovery of those who were injured and for the entire community. But look, as we hold our loved ones close this holiday season, we as a nation must renew our commitment to end the horror of gun violence, both mass shootings and everyday gun violence that touches so many communities in our nation.
CBS News correspondent Ian Lee is at the home of the suspected shooter, where you can see police where they made entry into that home looking for investigation elements and looking for clues for a motive. Here's his report.
Hi there. It's been a little over 24 hours since the 15-year-old walked into Abundant Life Christian School and started shooting. This community is still reeling from that, wondering how something like this could happen. We know the police had been preparing for it, like police departments across the country, and that's why we saw such a quick response. Within minutes, law enforcement had arrived, as well as paramedics. They were able to get the injured to a hospital quickly. But now the questions are, what could have caused the 15-year-old to do this? Well, behind me is the house. You can see that there's a blanket in front of the door, and that's because police breached it. There were concerns that there could have been explosives behind the door. There were not. Police say that they have looked through the house, looking through her personal possessions, trying to get any clues, looking through social media. They're also talking to the family, trying to figure out really what is the motive behind that. Another question is, how did this 15-year-old get her hands on a 9mm gun? That's something that the police are also looking into. But for now, again, this is a community reeling. We know that Madison City has been offering services to people, mental health services, really trying to tell people that they aren't alone during this tough time. Back to you.
Mental health services also being given to the children in that school and surrounding schools as well. Moving ahead, TikTok does its stop, a supreme and last-ditch attempt by the social media platform to avoid a forced sale. And the question, will President-elect Donald Trump try to help TikTok before that clock runs out? You're watching CBS News 24/7. We're back after this break. Welcome back to CBS News 24/7, friends. All right, social media giant TikTok turning to the Supreme Court. This is really a last-ditch effort to try to save the company from a forced sell-off. So, a bipartisan congressional measure signed into law by President Joe Biden set to go into effect January 19th. That law calls for TikTok's parent company called ByteDance to sell the platform to an American company or face a nationwide ban. TikTok says that measure violates their free speech rights under the First Amendment. Well, President-elect Donald Trump met with the platform's CEO yesterday and had this to say about the app during his news conference.
I have a warm spot in my heart for TikTok because I won youth by 34 points. And there are those that say that TikTok has something to do with that.
So let's go live to West Palm Beach, Florida, and CBS politics reporter Libby Cathy. All right, so Libby, Trump says he has that warm spot in his heart. Why? And is there any thought that he might intervene before this January date hits?
Yeah, you heard it there, Reed. Trump telling reporters at Mar-a-Lago yesterday that he has a warm spot in his heart for TikTok, citing the youth vote and winning the presidential election, and saying that TikTok might have something to do with that. Now, this is really a stunning reversal for Trump, who during his first term did try to enact a ban on TikTok, now saying yesterday that he will try to intervene before January 19th, as you said, when TikTok has this deadline to divest from this Chinese parent company, ByteDance. Trump saying yesterday that he wants to do something about that. But it is worth noting that this is a full reversal for Trump, and this comes at the behest of some who say that TikTok presents a host of security concerns. But Trump liking his numbers on the app after the election. And as you say, this meeting with TikTok yesterday coming after he said he has a warm spot for the app, coming really after a slew of meetings with different tech leaders, Reed.
Well, and relative to the security questions of the app, bipartisan lawmakers both sounded off concerns about that app. So it'll be fascinating to see what happens. So Trump also meeting with CEOs of the tech world. We're talking about Netflix CEO. That's coming up next, actually. So this comes after he sat down with leaders of Apple and Google and Meta. What can you tell us about this tech focus by the president-elect?
Yeah, Reed, everyone seems to be coming down to Mar-a-Lago and kissing the ring, for lack of a better phrase. Today, we have Netflix's CEO set to be at Mar-a-Lago, ahead of Amazon's founder, Jeff Bezos, being set to visit Mar-a-Lago this week. That also comes ahead of a planned donation by Amazon for $1 million to Trump's inaugural fund and another $1 million in-kind donation amounting to streaming the inauguration on Amazon Prime. But this comes also as some of Trump's cabinet picks have sent out warnings for some of these tech leaders. Kash Patel, for instance, Trump's pick for FBI director, has talked about subpoenas for Zuckerberg and the Google founder, for instance, for claims of censorship and other different cases that he has brought up. So Kash Patel threatening these subpoenas while all these tech leaders coming down and meeting with Trump, really trying to get ahead of potential retribution that they see might come in Trump's second term. And Trump saying yesterday that during his first term, nobody wanted to be his friend, kind of acknowledging here in the second term that everyone is trying to play nice with him, ahead of him also promising lawsuits against the media and a host of others, Reed.
All right, and so let's go a little bit deeper on those media lawsuits. Filed one against the Des Moines Register and Selzner last night. They cite a violation of Iowa's Consumer Fraud Act. Has the Register responded to that? And what's this all about?
Yeah, actually, Des Moines Register did respond to that. The spokesperson saying in a statement today after Trump filed that lawsuit in Polk County, Iowa last night. The spokesperson really standing by their pollster Ann Seltzer and saying this lawsuit is meritless. Now, Trump's team, of course, in this lawsuit saying that really accusing Seltzer of purposely trying to sway these races for Democrats, having a lot of words for Vice President Kamala Harris and her campaign as well. But the Des Moines Register, Gannett, that parent company, standing by their paper. And really, this is just emblematic of Trump making really do on these promises. Yesterday, he said that lawsuit would be coming for the Des Moines Register. Now it did. And what this stems from, just to give a little bit of context, Reed, is there was a poll made in the days leading up to the election by the Des Moines Register, by this longtime pollster Ann Seltzer, that put Harris ahead of Trump. Of course, Trump ended up winning Iowa by some 13 points. So now he's saying this is election interference, citing this under the Iowa Consumer Fraud Protection Act. Again, the Des Moines Register saying this is meritless, but absolutely intended to potentially have a chilling effect. And Trump has promised more of these lawsuits. And we know, Reed, sometimes polls are wrong. So that is one thing I'll add to this. And we'll see if this lawsuit goes anywhere else, as Trump has promised more, Reed.
Libby, Kathy, in what looks to be a breezy West Palm Beach, thank you so much for being on the stream with us today. We do have breaking news out of San Francisco, California, in that high-profile murder case involving a Bay Area tech executive. Here's your headline in this one. A jury has just found Nima Momeni guilty of second-degree murder in the killing of Cash App founder Bob Lee. Didn't turn out to be a first-degree murder guilty. It is second-degree murder. Jury members heard arguments for 6 weeks. Prosecutor said Nima Momeni acted in rage and plunged a knife into Lee in April 2023 regarding his sister's relationship with Lee and allegations of ongoing drug use. Well, the defense argued Nima was acting in self-defense after he made a bad joke at the expense of Lee's family. Let's listen in to our partners at CBS News Bay Area breaking news of this announcement.
Nima Momeni just found guilty of second-degree murder, which carries a penalty of 15 years to life in prison. Let's get over to our Lauren Toms right now. Lauren, you've been there from the very, very beginning. Tell us about the moment that verdict was read.
Yeah, and well, the moment that the verdict was read inside the courtroom, it was almost like a moment of stun. The entire room silent. The judge, of course, asking members of the courtroom to not have any audible reactions to whatever the verdict may be. But when the not guilty on first-degree murder verdict was read, you can feel two different sides of the room. One with a sense of relief on Nima Momeni's side of the courtroom, but on Bob Lee's side of the courtroom, you could see a lot of head shaking. But Brooke Jenkins was inside the courtroom there.
Of their time, that there was a lot coming at them as far as evidence, and the fact that they took the time that they needed to deliberate and reach this verdict means a great deal, not only to us, but as we know, most especially to this family. I have to right now sing the praises of the two attorneys that handled this case from my office, Omid Talai and Dane Reinstedt. I know these two from having worked with them in our homicide unit prior to becoming the district attorney, and I knew and was confident that we had two of our best handling this case. And I think the verdict is a testament to the hard work that they put in, to to the great lawyers that they are, and to their commitment to justice and to this making sure that this family received justice. I also want to thank the San Francisco Police Department, Sergeant Brent Dittmer, who was assigned to this case, to our staff who helped to further the investigation, to our victim advocates who stood by this family during a very tumultuous year as they waited to get to this point. It took a team effort for us to get here. This isn't just our office. It isn't just the police. It's all of us collectively working together to bring justice to families each and every day. The other thing that I want to say is I think that hopefully now we have once again established what truly happened here. We all know that after Bob Lee was murdered, Elon Musk took to Twitter to make an effort to really shame San Francisco and to make it seem like this was about lawlessness in San Francisco and about what's going on out in our streets. And we knew it was something different. And I think today proved once again that we are a city committed to accountability, we are a city committed to public safety, and that when something bad happens, which we can't always control, that law enforcement at every level will respond to make sure that there is justice and accountability in each and every situation. And so, again, we just want to thank this family that put their trust in us, the communities across San Francisco that put their trust in law enforcement, both the police and my office, to make sure that we had accountability in this case. And so that's all I have. Thank you.
That was Brooke Jenkins, their district attorney. We haven't heard her speak about this case since an arrest was made in mid-April of last year. But back inside the courtroom, a judge described today the reading of the verdict as a solemn occasion. All 12 jurors plus several alternates were present for this, all dressed up for the occasion. And the defense actually requested each juror to confirm their verdict, ensuring that this was unanimous. Each juror was asked to go one by one, confirming that they had agreed on this verdict of guilty of murder in the second degree. All of this also coming with the knife enhancement charge that does carry an additional 3 years in this case. But inside the courtroom, it was silent, it was somber. This is both
All right, listening in to CBS News Bay Area covering that high-profile case. Next, we await sentencing. It is our understanding that Nima Momeni could get up to 25 years in prison for this. We'll be watching for the next phase of this, which will be sentencing in San Francisco. When we come back, we're going to be focusing on the killings that happened at Gilgo Beach. More names added to this terrible story and what the implications are for the man accused. You're watching CBS News 24/7. Breaking news, coast to coast and worldwide. Welcome back to CBS News 24/7. An explosion in Moscow kills the head of Russia's nuclear defense forces and his deputy. So here's how it played out. Ukrainian security sources told CBS News that attack was planned by Ukraine. CBS News correspondent Haley Ott reports the explosion came from a scooter, of all things, rigged with explosives. Watch.
Lieutenant General Igor Kirillov was the head of the Russian military's chemical weapons unit, and investigators say he and his assistant were killed near the entrance of an apartment building in Moscow this morning by a bomb which was hidden in an electric scooter. Russian state media says the bomb had the power of about 300 grams of TNT and was detonated by remote control. Now, Kirillov and the unit he headed were under sanctions by a number of countries, including the U.S. and the U.K., for the use of chemical weapons on the battlefield in Ukraine. And just yesterday, he was charged in absentia there. Ukraine's security services saying it's recorded around 4,800 uses of chemical weapons by Russia since its full-scale invasion in February 2022. In particular from grenades, which are equipped with toxic substances and then dropped on Ukrainian troops from drones. Ukrainian security sources have told CBS News that Ukraine's SBU was behind the attack, killing Kirillov in a, quote, special operation and calling him a war criminal and a legitimate target. Russia has called the bombing a terrorist act. Haley Ott, CBS News, London.
Haley, thank you for that. Let's go to New York. Prosecutors charged the man accused of killing women along Gilgo Beach between 1993 and 2011 with now a 7th death. Prosecutors allege Rex Harriman murdered 24-year-old Valerie Mack, an escort who disappeared in 2000. Here's how CBS News New York covers the case.
Carolyn Gussoff has been covering the case since the beginning and is live in Riverhead with more on today's new developments. Carolyn.
Cindy, for years she was known only as Jane Doe number 6, but now we know her name, and prosecutors say they know who killed her. Rex Harriman was charged today with killing Valerie Mack 24 years ago, and he had something to say about it in court today.
The defendant is now charged with the murder of 7 young women.
A 7th murder pinned on Rex Harriman, who spoke in court for the first time. Your Honor, he said, I'm not guilty of any of these crimes. The 61-year-old Massapequa architect is allegedly linked to the murder of 24-year-old Valerie Mack of New Jersey by DNA. Hairs found on Mack's severed wrist were linked to Harriman's wife and daughter. Digital evidence, pornographic images of sexual torture, similar to the way ropes were used on Mack, and records that he reached out to a plumbing company for draining of his home pipes after the murder, and souvenirs, a cache of newspaper clippings and magazines about the serial murders.
People, there was a New York Times Magazine article about the Gilgo investigation, which was found in the defendant's safe, as well as other news articles.
Mack's remains were first found in 2000, and then body parts a decade later near the other 6 victims already linked to Harriman, all sex workers. In what prosecutors call his own written-out sadistic planning document, Mill Road is named as a dump site, the Manorville location where her torso was found.
All of that is consistent with the commission of those murders occurring at the home.
Mack's somber parents were in court and declined comment.
The lives of these women matter. We as investigators, we understand that. Obviously, no one understands it more than the families. At least we provide them with a small measure of closure.
Harriman is now linked to 7 killings from 1993 to 2010. And a trial date has not yet been set, but the judge today said that he would like to hold Fry hearings. That's on the admissibility of DNA evidence in late February or early March. Meanwhile, Mike Brown, that's the defense attorney representing Harriman, says that he wants his day in court. Reporting from Riverhead, Long Island, Carolyn Gussoff, CBS News, New York.
When we come back on CBS News 24/7, more information on that school shooting at a Christian school in Wisconsin. Riding our video monitors now back to Madison, Wisconsin, where police continue investigating yesterday's fatal shooting at Abundant Life Christian School. 3 people are dead, including the suspected shooter. At least 6 others injured in that attack. Officials say they are piecing together the events that led up to the shooting, including a potential motive. So let's go live once again to CBS News Homeland Security and Justice reporter Nicole Skanga. Always great to talk to you, and thank you for joining us again. So talk to us about the police response and what questions federal agencies need to address in the coming days.
Yeah, certainly to your point about questions they need to address, gun, motive, and timeline of the shooter. But Reed, we are learning more about just really the swift response by law enforcement, federal law enforcement, and of course state and locals who were on the ground, including the police officers who were on the scene within 3 minutes of that initial call going out. We know the shooting took place inside of a classroom, a study hall. Madison Police has said there were different students of different grades in that classroom. That initial 911 call came from a 2nd grader at 10:57 a.m. yesterday. By 11 o'clock, police were on the scene, and within 5 minutes of that initial call, police had confirmed that the shooter was down. Within 8 minutes, there were medics that were on the scene, EMS. They had been training about 3 miles away from the scene, truly rushing to get there. Within 17 minutes, authorities on scene were clearing the school, and within 27 minutes, there were bomb-sniffing dogs going inside and out of those classrooms, ensuring that there were no other improvised explosives or incendiary devices. So contrast this with what we saw, in the wake of the Uvalde shooting, that horrific shooting down in Texas, where law enforcement took 77 minutes to breach the door where the shooter was inside of a classroom. You know, clear here that law enforcement really wasted no time, no waiting before responding to the scene of this.
Chilling when you hear a second grader was the one to call 911 and report that shooting. So a lot of focus on the shooter, young, female, and where the gun came from. We understand police have obtained the gun that was used in the attack. How much information can they learn from that weapon?
Yeah, a 9mm pistol. Reed and ATF will expedite its trace program to determine the gun's manufacturer, its retail history, and ultimately who purchased that gun. Of course, no 15-year-old in the state of Wisconsin could have legally purchased a firearm. We're learning a little bit more about the shooter, 15 years old. Natalie Rupnow went by the name Samantha, and right now police and investigators combing through her social media, speaking with friends, including some of those who are posting online. Police say that they're trying to track down some of those students, and while they're not interrogating anyone, really trying to get a better picture of the suspect here. It's always challenging for law enforcement and federal investigators when the suspect is dead following a shooting to really piece all of this together. This is an unusual profile for a school shooter, a female shooter. FBI analysis of active shooting incidents last year showed only 2% of shooters are female. So of course the big question here still for police and investigators, what is the motive here? What might have contributed to this tragic decision? Were there social stressors involved? Was there a negative home life? Was there, a history of bullying of this suspect, a history of disciplinary action here, any sort of exhibited concerning social behavior? We know that in school shootings, 4 out of 5 cases, the shooter has told someone about their plans or their intentions here. And so now investigators tasked with trying to figure out if there were any missed red flags.
Meanwhile, families planning funerals and other families gathered around hospital beds. Nicole Skanga, thank you so much. Madison police expected, by the way, to hold a briefing on that shooting at 2 p.m. Eastern, not long from right now. As soon as we see that, you'll see it here on CBS News 24/7. We do have some breaking news out of San Francisco in that high-profile murder case involving a Bay Area tech executive. Here's your headline. A jury has just found Nima Momeni guilty of second-degree murder in the killing of Cash App founder Bob Lee. So moments ago, Lee's ex-wife spoke following that announcement in court. Listen.
That they should check, if I was talking to the police, that they should check the Millennium Tower footage. That this person was also scared that she would get stabbed too. And that was on April 5th of 2003, so one day after the murder. And in the last 18 months, I have received overwhelming information in regards to Mr. Momeni's behavior, his abusive nature, people he has stabbed before, women he has abused before. So this man deserves life in prison as far as I'm concerned, and I'm glad that he's off the streets. And I urge anyone to come forward who has ever been attacked by him and tell their stories.
When we talked to you coming into the courthouse, you said anything less than first degree murder was going to be an injustice. Did you change your mind?
Well, guilty right now. It's going to take a lot for me to process this right now. So right now I need to join my family though and talk to them. Find out more. And how are the kids? Kids are doing well. Kids are doing well. They're strong. I'm proud of them. Very, very proud of them. And right now it's finals week, so I need to get my my high school student back up to school. So hopefully she can focus on her English final today. But we stand strong. I'm a lucky woman to have such an incredible family around me.
Do you think this was justice?
For the most part, yes. But I would also like to see his sister and mother join him in orange jumpsuits.
What do you mean by that?
I mean, they're guilty. They deserve to go. I'm sorry, guys. I have to get upstairs. Thank you.
That is that tech executive's ex-wife, Krista Lee. So joining us now to go over that jury's verdict is CBS News legal contributor Caroline Polisi. Welcome, Caroline. So what do you make of the verdict? Because obviously the family of Bob Lee would have liked a first-degree murder. Now it's second-degree. What do you make of that?
Yeah, exactly. And even though Bob Lee's brother did come out saying they felt that justice had been served, and certainly the prosecution is happy with this verdict. It is not the verdict, the top charge that prosecutors wanted here. They told a very different story than the second-degree charge would indicate. That is, they told a story of actual premeditation, that Momeni planned this as revenge for an assault that had taken place on his sister, fueled by drugs and her association with Lee, that he pre-planned. He took the knife that evening, that he drove the victim to a location that he knew would be sort of out of sight, and that he planned the attack. Now, the jury didn't buy that version of events, and they chose to convict him on the second-degree murder charge. But they also didn't buy the defense's story here, which was that this was a murder of self-defense. In other words, Momeni claims that Lee was the initial aggressor, that he was merely defending himself. If they had bought that story, they could have convicted on manslaughter. They could have even acquitted here. So it's an interesting verdict, although it might not make that much difference in terms of sentencing. He will be going away for quite a bit of time.
All right, so let's talk about another high-profile case, and that is Luigi Mangione, sitting in a Pennsylvania jail cell right now, fighting extradition. What do you anticipate will happen in the mechanism of government, so to speak, to get Luigi Mangione extradited to New York?
Yeah, obviously he's facing much more serious charges in New York. Everybody wants him in New York, including Pennsylvania prosecutors. It's more of a procedural issue. He has been fighting extradition in Pennsylvania. However, with reports that he has retained a new high-powered defense attorney here in New York, it does seem likely that he will waive that extradition. Alvin Bragg, the Manhattan district attorney, made a statement indicating that he believes it's likely that Mangione will waive his extradition, meaning he won't continue to fight it. If he does continue to fight it, it will just take a little bit more time. What essentially the issue for extradition is whether or not the Luigi Mangione that is under indictment in New York is in fact the Luigi Mangione in Pennsylvania. It could take a little bit of time, but if he waives it, we could see him get to New York quite quickly to face those charges.
All right, and we'll continue to cover that. Caroline Polisi, thank you so much. Always nice having you on CBS News 24/7. We hope to have you back soon. When we come back, we will stay in that part of the country. So many people looking up to the skies and saying, that's a drone. Some of them 8 feet wide in wingspan. And the push for answers continues. We're watching when we come back. Welcome back to CBS News 24/7. We ride our video monitors now to the state of Texas, where CBS News immigration reporter Camilo Montoya Galvez outlines the challenges ahead for the Trump administration and the president-elect's plans for mass deportation. Watch.
The U.S.-Mexico border played an important role in the presidential campaign, and it is set to be a key policy issue for the incoming Trump administration, which is expected to issue a slew of executive actions on the issue. We should expect the incoming Trump administration to try to reinstate the Remain in Mexico policy that requires migrants to await their asylum hearings on the other side of this wall in Mexico to try to carry out the largest deportation operation in American history, and also to make an effort to terminate birthright citizenship for the children of people who are in the country illegally. They are expected to move very quickly and expeditiously on these policy proposals, but they are also likely to face formidable legal, operational, and political challenges. For example, reinstating Remain in Mexico would require the consent of Mexico's government. Some countries like Venezuela do not accept U.S. deportations currently, and when it comes to mass deportations, we know that there are 4 million U.S. citizen children who live with at least one undocumented parent. We also know that ICE does not have the current manpower and resources to deport millions of people from the country illegally. And importantly, we should expect a high-profile legal and political battle between the incoming administration and cities with so-called sanctuary policies that limit cooperation with federal immigration authorities. Incoming border czar has warned these cities that they should stay out of the way, saying that those who harbor undocumented immigrants could face prosecution. Camilo Montoya Galvez, CBS News, El Paso.
People in the Pacific Northwest are seeing this, snow and ice. This is the scene in Washington State. It looks downright Christmassy, but we know, Zoe, as we bring you in to talk about this, It also means be safe out there on the roads.
Yeah, it means travel troubles as an atmospheric river is impacting them. Yet another one is going to continue to impact them for the next 24 hours. Luckily, though, it will be a quick mover as we step out, and by the middle parts of the upcoming week, it should be out of our hair. But either way, you could see that stream of moisture coming in from that atmospheric river, and it's really interesting to see that stream of moisture by looking at the water vapor that's moving in along with it. That very abundant stream. It's a fire hose of moisture that is just going to continue to pummel the Pacific Northwest and continue to bring them chances for snow and rain. But again, throughout the next 24 hours. Let's take a closer look at that storm system and the exact timing of it, because over the past 72 hours, a lot of the snow fell over the Sierra, but that snow is going to continue to move upwards up to the north, and that's why they're going to be seeing a lot of that snow across the Pacific Northwest throughout the day today. But this line, this is the bulk of the atmospheric river, and the time period 10:30 p.m. So an overnight storm system will be moving through a majority of the Washington coastline, and it's going to bring upwards of 5 inches of rainfall and very strong gusty winds as well. But by the time that we step out late tomorrow morning and afternoon, most of the action will be out of their hair. So again, it's a quick mover, and it's going to bring a good amount of snow as well, another 12 to 15 inches on top of what you have already seen. Not only a lot of snow and rain, but also some very gusty winds coming in straight from the south from that atmospheric river, gusting upwards of 60 plus miles an hour. Those gusty winds again are going to stick around overnight, but when the atmospheric river moves through, so will those gustier winds. They'll be dying down by early tomorrow morning, and then again much drier and much quieter conditions by tomorrow afternoon. So if you have any travel plans, maybe if you can postpone them until later tomorrow. All things to keep your eye on, but make sure you stay safe out there throughout the rest of today and tomorrow. Back to you.
All right, thank you so much. The woman charged with sneaking onto a Delta Airlines flight from New York to Paris arrested again, this time for trying to sneak into Canada. Officials say Svetlana Dali cut off her ankle monitor, boarded a bus for Canada. You know, for a second time, she faces a judge because of this one. We understand she's due in court a little bit later today. Look at this. Huge fire in Tennessee. That fire, sparked by a lightning strike of all things, ruptured a gas line, sparking the fire in the town of Collierville, which is just east of Memphis. Well, walls of flames erupted last night. They burned for hours, and you can see right there the emergency officials that were there on scene just in case somebody got hurt. We're glad to tell you, despite the explosive nature of this lightning strike that ruptured that gas line, nobody got hurt. Well, the push to figure out what's going on with those mysterious drones continues. Reports of those drones now coming from at least 6 U.S. states. The FBI sifting through more than 5,000 tips. You can see them in the sky. Those are not stars, folks. The White House says there is no indication the drones pose a threat. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer pushes for new legislation that would allow authorities to detect the drones a little earlier and take action. Take a listen.
For all we know, the recent drone incidents are for the most part, or maybe all part, benign. But even so, in some cases, they can be disruptive, like when they impact airport operations or approach bases. And people are understandably anxious about seeing things in the night sky without clear answers to what is going on.
Chuck Schumer there. The FAA released a video explaining the rules for the drone operation. Moments ago, Texas Congressman Mike McCall headed to a meeting when he was asked about Nancy Pelosi's health. Remember, Nancy Pelosi's been in a foreign hospital recovering from a fall. Take a listen.
On Speaker Emerita Pelosi and the fall that she had, et cetera. Just, you know, your thoughts to her, what you experienced there, how's she doing if you're aware?
She's doing well. She had a hip replacement. I was right next to her. She likes to wear high heels, very high. She was on one of her last steps on this marble staircase that didn't have a railing, and she lost her footing and fell to the ground. I immediately helped pick her up, and we took a picture. After that, you can see me holding her up by her hand, and then very soon thereafter, a vehicle showed up, and she was taken to the hospital. I wish her a speedy recovery. She was transported from Luxembourg to Ramstein, and specifically the Longstuhl Hospital, where I believe she currently is. Having a hip replacement. She's 84, but when I talked to her on the phone, she had a lot of energy.
Representative Michael McCall there, who was with Nancy Pelosi when she made that fall. That's it for us at CBS News 24/7. Thank you so much for watching. The news continues.